Live from the German capital city of Berlin, where Hazrat Amirul Mu'mineen, may Allah be his helper, will be delivering a keynote address to parliamentarians, religious leaders, and dignitaries at the renowned Adlon Hotel.
Please be seated.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Eure Heiligkeit, Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, sehr geehrter Herr Bundesvorsitzender Abdullah Wageshauser, sehr geehrter Herr Staatsminister Niels Annen, sehr geehrter Herr Bundestagsabgeordneter Umed Noripur, sehr geehrter Herr Bundestagsabgeordneter Frank Heinrich, meine sehr geehrten Damen und Herren, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, Friede sei mit Ihnen. Im Namen der Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat Deutschland heiße ich Sie alle herzlich willkommen. Wir beginnen das Programm gemäß der islamischen Tradition mit einer Rezitation aus dem Heiligen Koran. Die Rezitation und anschließend die deutsche Übersetzung wird von Herrn Imam Jariullah Khan vorgetragen. Herr Khan, bitte.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اجتنبوا كثيرا من الظن إن بعد الظن إثم ولا تجسسوا ولا يغتب بعضكم بعضا أيحب أحدكم أن يأكل لحم أخيه ميتا فكرهتموه واتقوا الله إن الله تواب رحيم يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير.
Nun folgt die deutsche Übersetzung der soeben vorgetragenen Verse aus dem Heiligen Koran, der Sura al-Hujurat, Verse 13 und 14. Ich suche Zuflucht bei Allah vor Satan, dem Verfluchten. Im Namen Allahs, des Gnädigen, des immer Barmherzigen. O, die ihr glaubt, vermeidet häufigen Argwohn, denn mancher Argwohn ist Sünde.
O ye who believe, avoid most of suspicions, for suspicion in some cases is a sin. And spy not, nor backbite one another. Would any of you like to eat the flesh of his brother who is dead? Certainly you would loathe it. And fear Allah. Surely Allah is oft returning with compassion and is merciful. O mankind, we have created you from a male and a female, and we have made you into tribes and sub-tribes that you may recognize one another. Verily, the most honorable among you in the sight of Allah is He who is the most righteous among you. Surely Allah is all-knowing, all-aware. Respected guests, since a very long time, there has been various discussions about the teachings of Islam in European forums, and today, through this proceeding, we are going to present the Islamic perspective, and we are thankful that you have been a part of our proceedings today. Some of our guests, who I would like to specifically mention, and I am apologetic that I cannot really mention all of them. We've had the Secretary, Mr. Globen, who is a representative of religious freedom from the government. Similarly, we have the representative of European law from Espiri Party. I would like to welcome Mr. Matun, who is the Vice Chairman. From the Green Party, I would like to welcome Mrs. Paula, who is the representative of the integration section. From the Link Party, I would like to welcome Mr. Buchel and Mr. Rupert from the FTP Party, who I would like to also welcome. And also I would like to welcome the representatives of the UNCPR. From the city of Berlin, we have Mr. Ryan, who is the representative of the religious forums. Also, we have representatives of the science department, the vice president of the Hamburg University, Professor Oberkfell, who is a lady. She is also here. Dr. Hero, who is the representative of the Catholic Church. Rabbi Rothschild, who is also a representative from the Jewish community. We have respected Ahmad Sahib, Mr. Wageshauser, to present the perspective or the introduction of the Jamaat-e-Ahmadiyya to you. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Huzoor, Hazrat Aqdas Khalifatul Masih Ayyadullah Ta'ala bin Nasr al-Aziz, respected guests of the respected members of the Parliament, and all respected guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is our great honor that we are holding our proceedings, which is very close to the German Parliament, and there are symbols of the atrocities that were committed to the Jewish people in the World War. And I am very thankful to all of you that you have accepted our invitation. We are from various diverse backgrounds, from various diverse industries, and we have been brought together at a time when the entire world is going towards a split. It's going towards intolerance to one another, And lots of prejudice is found against Islam. Lots of people have hate for Islam in this day and age. And the right wing are on the streets creating chaos. With this background in perspective, we need to organize such proceedings, such ceremonies, through which we can open new avenues. We, the German-Ahmadiyya, is a spiritual community, and this is spread over 200 countries. It's active in over 200 countries. And people are doing its level best so that they could present a perspective or a proof of Allah the Almighty being the most compassionate, the most merciful. And we try our level best to ease the pain of the people of the world. There is a saying that work for everyone and love everyone. And therefore we believe that our faith is there to bring everyone, all kinds of people together. It is our duty, it is our purpose, and it is our goal that we will work for everyone with justice. And this is exactly the teaching of the Holy Prophet ﷺ. The founder of the Jamaat-Ahmadiyya, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Islam, in his writings repeatedly mentions that Muslims, or being a Muslim, isn't simply to pray or to have great knowledge, but he must also practically do his best to ease the pain and hardships of people, and that is a true Muslim. And a true Muslim is he who works to improve the world around him, and he must give many sacrifices for this cause. The Jamaat-Ahmadiyya believes that the Holy Prophet ﷺ was the Khatam al-Nabiyyin and the last law-bearing prophet, and Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad ﷺ is the Imam Mahdi and the Messiah whom was prophesied, whose arrival was prophesied by the Holy Prophet ﷺ. Once he arrived in this world, he arrived for the sake of the revival of Islam, and to create a link between man and God, which was evident in its distance. If we look at the history, the Jamaat-Ahmadiyya in Germany inaugurated itself in Germany in 1920 when the foundation stone of a mosque was laid in Berlin. But due to the inflation of the time and due to the current the circumstances of the country at the time, it could not have been fulfilled. The completion of that mosque could not be fulfilled. And then in 1997, the first mosque in Kampung was constructed, and then a mosque was also made in Frankfurt, and these were the first mosques made in Germany after the Second World War. We have Jamaat members active all over the country, and they are active in inter-religious and social activities, through which blood donations are one of them. Also looking after the elder people of society, interreligious dialogues, planting of plants. In 2008, we established the German-Ahmadiyya, in which missionaries are trained after a 7-year period of schooling, in which they learn languages and information about other religions and work in various institutes. This is how we also established Al-Nusrat, which is for the sake of social welfare, and it is for the purpose of feeding people of different backgrounds, and for also other social works. The Jamaat-Ahmadiyya believes that the democracy of this country must be promoted, and this is a part of our faith. The people of Germany, we believe that Germany is our home. Germany is our home, and we live here as Germans and Europeans. The clash of civilization is today's topic. Sayyidina Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad Sahib, Khalifatul Masih Ayyadullah Ta'ala bin Nasr al-Aziz, will be discussing this topic today, and I would like to inform you all about this. Jazakumullah. The first address would be from Mr. Frank Heinrich, who is the member of the CSU party and works in the Human Rights Association. We are fortunate for him to be here and to address us. Respected Heinrich Sahib. Thank you very much for the invitation. I would like to welcome all the members of the Parliament and Your Holiness. According to the introduction, we have heard many words and situations in which we hear these words. There are various dynamics that are involved in these words. I'm very thankful for you to invite me. But when I think about the Jamaat-e-Ahmadiyya, it's as if I have two hearts which are beating within my chest. You could say that I have two kinds of emotions which are before me. The first is that of great, glad happiness, and the other one is a sorrow which is also within me. I'm going to introduce this and what it means. I have seen that on various of your publications, I read love for all, hatred for none. Love for all, hatred for none. Whenever in my city I see that this city itself, the way your Jamaat is active and the way people turn against it. And when I went to your Jalsa in Karlsruhe, I witnessed that, I also had the opportunity to also speak. I saw that there was 34,000 people in front of me, and I was given the invitation that I could speak about the freedom of religion in front of those thousands of people. And I was so fortunate to get this opportunity, and I'm very thankful that you gave a chance to speak about this topic. In the city, you have seen that on the 2nd of January, in the newspapers, it was mentioning, well, they were mentioning you, and because you had cleaned the city streets of the time. And I am so I have the sorrow that if you look at it in the perspective of Pakistan and the difficulties that you have to go through in Pakistan, when I hear about that, I start thinking that you have to face such severe persecution and how the right wing of Pakistan completely stand up against you and how they target you for oppression. Now, I have been a member of the church. I have been a priest in my time, and I know what your teachings are. Religion has to be based upon reality. My Holy Scripture states that there is no life without faith, and I am so happy to think that your respected Caliph, you under the wing of your spiritual leader, you are increasing or improving your talking about democracy. Hence, you are giving a teaching of mercy for everyone. You are talking about the equality of men and female. That you are promoting this teaching, and you are also promoting the teaching of religious freedom or oppression which is done in the name of religion. You speak against it. So this is something which distinguishes you from all other communities. I read today that the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat is the one community which has no political agenda, nor does it have any militant agenda, nor does it have any extremist agenda. And this is not something which many people know. And today we are going to expand on this and explain this to the world, that no one could have any anger against you when they find out about the work that you do. Religion and logic is not something which has any opposition to one another. This is exactly what I learned in Karlsruhe and in your Jamaat events. And I am very, my final statement would be that we need to practically implement that we are acting upon our religion with complete freedom. And I would like to motivate your entire community to continue with this good work. And I thank you once again for inviting me, because today I am going to discuss some personal issues. even though we are going to be discussing with one another on the tables, on the mazes, we're going to be explaining our experiences to one another, and you are completely correct that we require more sermons as such. Thank you very much for inviting me. Jazakumullah. I would like to request a friend of the community, Mr. Nuripur, who is he is in charge of the Green Party security group. Thank you very much for inviting me. That you also received me with your clapping. Maybe I was not, I'm not really entitled to this sort of introduction. I have been working with Mr. Wagasaza for the past 20 years. We've had many disputes as well. We've had many disagreements. There's been times when our views were completely different. But this is good, because if you argue with one another, this creates a form of progression. And I bear witness to Allah the Almighty that there are so many points which even though I disagree with, but I'm talking about positive disagreements. And I believe that maybe one day you would turn to us as well. I'm very fortunate to be meeting His Holiness, and my city holds your headquarters in Frankfurt. So I'm very thankful that we are very honored that you came to forward the qualities of our city for this choice. So the topic today is different. Therefore, I'm going to mention in regards to that. You heard Mr. Wageshauser. There was a question which was raised in regards to his topic, and that was the Ahmadiyya community has been completely entitled to declare itself as Muslim. Who is a Muslim? Who is a believer? This is a fundamental question. And who has the right to declare someone as a believer or not? This is a very big question. In our society, the answer of this is simple, that everyone is rightfully allowed to say what religion he belongs to. No one has the right to declare whether that person is truly a follower of that religion. This is something which should be determined by each and every person personally, and he should have the right to do so. This has been the thing which the injustice which has happened with the Jamaat-Ahmadiyya from the very first day. People discriminate you, people oppress you because you declare yourself to be Muslims, not just in Pakistan, rather it has happened in Bangladesh. And this is a very good opportunity that 10 years ago, when a group of extremists, when they wanted to demolish the mission of the mosque, the German councillor, the representative of the council, he spoke up and he told people that this should not be the case, this oppression should not be done. And this was one of the biggest things that could have been done by a councillor. And this is why the situation in Bangladesh is so much better. Now, today we see that there are people who are being oppressed in Yemen, and edicts are being given against them in Saudi Arabia. We've seen that in various countries such as Bulgaria, where that such oppression is emerging. So it is in such cases that the response of the Jamaat-Ahmadiyya against all of this oppression, and after all of this experience which they had to go through, they still proclaim the message of love for all, hatred for none. So this is a very powerful message, and this is a message which is so beautiful in its essence that you follow it. And there was a time when there was a forum about Islam in Europe, in which it was discussed that we are not going to create an atmosphere of discomfort and conflict. Love for all, hatred for none is a motto which is fundamental in spreading this message, or these activities which you are doing across the country. Your members of parliament, they have seen in their areas how the Jamaat-Ahmadiyya is serving, and it is in fact a very beautiful kind of work that you do on a local level, and we are so thankful for you to do such work. And this is why we are with you today. And inshallah, in the future, our arguments are going to continue, but they are going to bring us closer. And inshallah, we are so thankful that His Holiness is here with us, and he's going to address us on this topic of the clash of civilizations and Islam. Jazakallah, Mr. Nooripur. The last address is going to be from the Stats Minister, who is a representative of the External Affairs. And I request him to come forward and present his address. Jazakumullah. His Holiness and all members of the Parliament and all respected guests, ladies and gentlemen, I am very fortunate that I am today standing before you and addressing all of you. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because we are all eagerly awaiting for the Imam of the German-Ahmadiyya to address all of us. I would just like to make some brief points, and today is in fact a very beautiful evening. 70 years ago, in 1950, our constitution was formed, and this constitution, which is known as Grundgesetz, is the fundamental basis through which we live with freedom. And in this country, there are so many people from various backgrounds, from various religions. There are various voices in this country. And this is a gift which has been given to us. But this isn't only a gift, rather, this is in fact the result of a great task which we are doing, or a great reward which we are enjoying through this constitution. And in this very year, in the northwest, which is a channel of Hamburg, it presented a lecture of Sheikh Nasir Sahib, who was the Imam of the Jamaat in Switzerland. And after the Second World War, he worked there, and he also worked in the German-Ahmadiyya Germany. Why am I mentioning this? The reason why I'm mentioning this is because his lecture was the first lecture which was mentioned, was presented in the radio through the perspective lens of Islam. So therefore, the Jamaat-Ahmadiyya and the history of Germany is very much side and side. And our respected brother has also mentioned that in 1955, the Jamaat-Ahmadiyya established its first mosque in Hamburg in 1997, and it registered its Jamaat. And in 1997, the first mosque was in fact established, the mosque which is known as Fazl-e Umar. And I am very much attached to that mosque because I live there. And I have a very lovely relationship with the members of the Jamaat. It's like we live as if we are good neighbors. And on every opportunity, although we do not agree with the same opinion, and this is a part of democracy because you should have various opinions, but we can say that the members of the Jamaat, they certainly improve the quality of our society, and therefore this is a beautiful occasion for me to stand before you and address you all. Behind me it states Islam and Europe. In regards to the topic of Islam and Europe, which is being organized by the Jamaat-Ahmadiyya, what is the background of this? And I just want to mention a few things in regards to this. This is no coincidence. However, I just want to say that in Hamburg, the Jamaat-Ahmadiyya was established, from the year 2014, has been, it's basically registered as a community in Hamburg, which has the same status as the churches of the city, and similar the similar situation is in Frankfurt and in other districts of Germany. In regards to the discussions which have taken place before me, I just want to say that in my opinion, it is in fact a great task which the Jamaat-Ahmadiyya has done in the name of Islam Conference. And not only are you active, but you have also produced imams, leaders in Germany, which is in fact a very great contribution. And it's a detailed history through which we can learn with one another from. We've also discussed that there has been there always will be various obstacles in the path of our journeys, and this is exactly what the external offices work on. And the various activities which we do in the various districts. The current situation of Pakistan grows a sense of fear within us, a sense of worry within us, and we must raise voice against the oppression that is raised in Pakistan. And in the next few years, it is in fact our great fortune that we live in the Central Republic of Germany, and the human rights, we are also a member of the Human Rights Council in the United Nations. We will sit there and we will raise our voice, and the members of parliament have tried their level best that they should be active in regards to the human rights, and Germans are very well known for human rights, and I would like to inform all the members of the German-Ahmadiyya that we will try our level best, that we will speak about the freedom of expression of religion, and especially in Pakistan, the oppression which is raised against the Muslims or the Jamaat-Ahmadiyya. We are going to raise this issue at the United Nations, and you should be satisfied that we will speak for you. I am very thankful, I'm very fortunate that I am now going to invite Sayyidi to address all of us. Respected guests, now the keynote address of the evening will be delivered by Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Ayyadullah Ta'ala bin Nasr al-Aziz. I would like to request him to come forward.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of Allah, the gracious, ever merciful. All the distinguished guests, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace and blessing of Allah be upon you all. First of all, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of our guests who have accepted our invitation and joined us here this evening. In the world today, particularly in Western and developed nations, there is a great deal of heated debate about immigration and its effect on societies. Much of the debate centers around Muslims. Certain governments and members of the public fear a clash of civilization and believe that Muslims are a threat to their society and cannot integrate into the Western world. Before responding to this contention, it is important to define what exactly is meant by civilization. In this regard, I present the definition given by the second head of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, which I fully concur with. According to the definition, civilization is the material progress and development of a society. Factors that indicate the strength of a civilization include its economic progress, the level of technological innovation, the advancement of the means of travel and communication, and the intellectual progress of the society. Furthermore, the efforts of a nation to foster peace and stability, whether by virtue of the law enforcement and military proficiency or by other means of, is also a measure of its civilization. Separate and distinct from civilization is a nation's culture. Culture is a manifestation of the views of the people, their attitudes towards social issues and their practices, and instead of being based on material progress, culture is rooted in morality and the religious values and traditions of a nation. Thus, civilization is the material, technological, and intellectual development of a society, whereas its culture is based on the religious, moral, and philosophical makeup of that society. The difference between civilization and culture can be easily understood if we look back to the early period of Christianity. At that time, Roman Empire was at the peak of its powers. And even now, it is considered as one of the greatest civilizations in the history of the world. Due to their material prosperity, urbanization, and the way its territories were governed, the Romans were considered to be tremendously civilized and educated. However, their sophistication did not equate to higher standards of morality. Rather, it was during the early period of Christianity that their people were infused with a progressive culture. Christianity gave people guiding principle based on religion and morality, whilst the Romans prescribed worldly laws and limits. Hence, the progress and advancement of the Romans reflected their great civilization, whereas Christianity gave the people a laudable culture. Over time, Christianity became the predominant religion of the Roman Empire. And so the culture it established was adopted by a great civilization. Allied together, their supreme influence laid the foundation for the values and traditions that remain today in the West, in the West, despite the fact that people in the West are now moving away from religion. Regarding the debate about immigration in recent decades, the demographics of several Western countries has altered. Immigrants have arrived from many countries, but it has been the influence, the influx of Muslims that has caused most concern and alarm. Many indigenous people fear that mass immigration from Muslim countries threatens their civilization, culture, and values, which have existed for many centuries. As I have explained, we consider civilization to be the material progress and advancement of society. And rather than disapprove, oppose, or deny the growth and development in the West, developing nations seek to emulate it. As a result, rather than Western civilization being cast aside, we are seeing the opposite. Due to the modern means of travel and communication, the world has become a global village. The advent of television, the mass media, and particularly the internet have meant that nothing now remains hidden in the world, and so people who live in economically deprived countries can see how those in affluent nations live. They are being influenced by Western civilization and desire to attain similar levels of material advancement and innovation. Thus, the assertion that Western or European civilization is threatened by the presence of Muslims does not hold water. Rather, Western civilization is influencing other parts of the world, and this includes the Muslim world. On the other hand, a fear that the religious and moral culture of the West could be threatened if Islam spreads in Europe is a more legitimate concern, and I shall now address this point. Firstly, it is undeniable that people are rapidly moving away from religion, and this trend is particularly acute in the West. In Western countries, wherever a census is conducted, it shows, whenever the census is conducted, it shows that people are less and less inclined towards religion or belief in God. Given this, I believe that the rapid increase of atheism is a far greater threat to Western culture than Islam. Western values are centuries old and based upon its religious traditions, and especially on its Christian and Jewish heritage. However, these religious values and cultural norms are under attack from those who oppose all forms of religion and faith. So, as a Muslim leader, I believe you should protect your heritage and culture by focusing your energies on arresting the decline in religion and bringing people back towards faith and belief, whether that be Christianity, Judaism, or any other. It should not be that in the name of advancement, those values and moral standards that have been part of society for many centuries are suddenly abandoned. I also believe that the decline in religion in the West is the main reason people fear Islam, because they know that, broadly speaking, Muslims remain attached to their faith. In light of this, I wish to make it clear that despite what you hear or read in the media, there is no cause to fear Islam. Muslims believe that the Holy Quran to be a final and perfect religious teaching, and it is due to our love and obedience to the Holy Quran that we firmly believe that religion is a matter of the heart and personal to every individual. In chapter 2, verse 257, the Holy Quran has categorically stated that there should be no compulsion in matters of religions. Therefore, there is no need for non-Muslims to fear that Muslims will try to forcefully spread their beliefs or impose their views on this part of the world. The hateful ideology of the tiny minority of so-called Muslims who have adopted extremism bears no correlation with the teachings of the Holy Quran. Indeed, I have said many times that governments and relevant authorities should deal very firmly with extremists, be they Muslims or non-Muslims. In terms of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, we believe that under no circumstances does Islam permit the use of force on any type of coercion in the spread of faith. Why then is there a need to fear Islam? Why do people think that their civilization or culture is at risk from Muslims? Now, after explaining the differences between civilization and culture from an Islamic perspective, I would like to present some of the core teachings of Islam. Many myths and misconceptions about Islam and its founder, peace and blessing of Allah be upon him, have spread, and whilst it is not possible to cover all aspects of Islamic teachings in the short time available, I would like to mention some of the rights of mankind that Islam has established. A very significant verse of the Holy Quran in terms of human rights is chapter 4, verse 37, which states, "And worship Allah and associate not with Him, and show kindness to parents and to kindred and orphans and the needy, and to the neighbor who is a kinsman, and the neighbor who is a stranger, and the companion by your side, and the wayfarer, and those whom your right hands possess." In this verse, where Allah the Almighty instructs Muslims to worship Him, He also instructs them to treat their parents with love and affection. How can this teaching requiring Muslims to love and honor their parents clash with any religion or nation? The verse also requires Muslims to treat their relatives and loved ones with kindness and consideration. It requires them to support and comfort the most vulnerable and underprivileged members of society, such as orphans. In this regard, we believe that one of the key ways to help the poor is through education. If younger members of society who are from broken homes or who are stricken by poverty are educated, it will enable them to break free from the shackles of destitution. Opportunities will open up to them, and so, free from frustration and resentment, such youths will grow to be productive members of society, rather than being lured towards a life of crime or gang culture. This is why the Ahmadiyya Muslim community lays great emphasis on education, and within our limited resources, we have built schools in various African countries and fund scholarships for students who cannot afford higher education. We also believe that rich countries should help the weaker nations of the world build solid foundations. If poorer countries can build up their economies and infrastructures, their people will have opportunities at home and have far less reason to migrate abroad. If their nations are stable and prosperous, it naturally follows that the region and the wider world will benefit. In the aforementioned verse of the Holy Quran, special mention is made to fulfilling the rights of one's neighbors, whether they are Muslims or non-Muslims, and it defines the scope of neighbors to be extremely wide. Furthermore, the Prophet of Islam, peace and blessing of Allah be upon him, said that God Almighty had emphasized the rights of neighbors so strongly that he came to think neighbors would be included amongst a person's rightful heirs. The founder of Islam, peace and blessing of Allah be upon him, also taught that a person who is not grateful to the fellow human beings cannot be grateful to Allah the Almighty. What a beautiful principle. Thus, it is necessary that alongside the worship of God, a Muslim must fulfill the rights of humanity. Again, I would ask, how can such a teaching be a threat to Western civilization? Hence, in my view, it is counterproductive for Western people to suggest that Islam or Muslims have no place in this part of the world. If Muslims come here seeking to integrate, to fulfill the rights of neighbors and striving for the peace and betterment of society, then surely this is something to praise rather than to condemn or castigate. That is what have been mentioned by some of the speakers in their speeches about Ahmadiyya Muslim community. Moving on, some people argue or believe that Muslims are instructed to perform jihad, and so they fear they will come to the West and wage a violent war, seeking to enforce an Islamic civilization and culture and shatter the peace of society. This is based on a clear misunderstanding of what jihad is and why religious wars were fought in the early period of Islam. Islam is not a bloodthirsty or violent religion. Once a companion of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing of Allah be upon him, asked him to join the Muslim army so he could take part in jihad. The Prophet of Islam, peace and blessing of Allah be upon him, rejected his plea and said that because his parents were in a fragile state, he should remain at home and care for them, and that consider that to be his jihad. If the objective of jihad was conquest, bloodshed, and warfare, the Prophet of Islam, peace and blessing of Allah be upon him, would surely have taken up his offer and sought to bolster the Muslim army. I should clarify that whilst it is true that Muslim armies fought in some religious wars during the early period of Islam, this purpose was never to overpower, oppress, or compel people to accept Islam. Those wars were fought to protect the institution of religion and uphold principle of freedom of belief. In chapter 22, verse 40-41, the Holy Quran very clearly states that if the aggressors were not stopped, all churches, synagogues, temples, mosques, and other places of worship would be under grave threat, as the underlying intention of the disbelievers of Makkah was to destroy all traces of religion from the face of the earth. This proves that Islam protects all the religions. Then, with regard to bringing up our children, chapter 6, verse 152 of the Holy Quran states that Muslims must not slay their children. This commandment instructs Muslims to nourish their children with love and affection, to morally guide them and to educate them so that they grow to become highly competent and moral individuals who are assets to their community and nation. Similarly, Islam has taught Muslims to defend the rights of vulnerable members of society. For example, in chapter 4, verse 7 of the Holy Quran, Muslims are obliged to protect orphan children from exploitation and to guard their inheritance with integrity until they reach an age where they can manage it themselves. Furthermore, another very common allegation in the Western world is that Muslims do not respect women or their rights. First of all, it should be noted that Islam was the first religion to give women the right to inherit, the right to divorce, and various other rights. In addition, Islam emphasizes the vast importance of educating girls and giving them opportunities for personal growth and development. Moreover, in a famous saying of the Holy Prophet of Islam, peace and blessing of Allah be upon him, said that paradise lies under the feet of one's mother. These words illustrate the momentous role women play in society and their unique and distinguished status in society. Mothers are the people who have the power and influence to turn their nations into a heaven on earth, and who can unlock the doors to an eternal paradise for their children. Furthermore, in chapter 4, verse 20, the Holy Quran has stated that Muslim men must treat their wives lovingly and respectfully. In Western countries, not a day goes by without reports of the police or the courts being forced to intervene and deal with horrifying cases of domestic abuse. Various studies and reports, such as the 2018 report by the Office of National Statistics in the UK, prove that such crimes are not linked to any religion. And another recent report has shown that the same is true here in Germany. Thus, it is entirely unjust to brand Islam as a misogynistic religion. Islam also requires its followers to respect the religious sentiments and beliefs of other people. The Covenant of Medina was a true illustration of this teaching, where the Torah was recognized and respected as the law-bearing book of the Jews. Islam has even established the rights of a person's enemies and opponents, whereby chapter 2, verse 191 of the Holy Quran states that no injustice or transgression should be done against one's enemy even during a state of war. Regrettably, in today's world, which proudly boasts of being more civilized and advanced than any previous era, individuals and countries disregard the rights of their opponents as a matter of routine and perpetrate huge cruelties and waste no opportunity for revenge. In chapter 5, verse 9 of the Holy Quran, Allah the Almighty has proclaimed that the enmity of a nation or people should never incite a person to sacrifice the principles of justice and equity. Rather, Islam teaches that in all circumstances, no matter how challenging, you must remain firmly attached to the principles of justice and integrity, and never be motivated by a desire for vengeance. As a result of this magnificent teaching, we see the unparalleled example of grace, compassion, and mercy exhibited by the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing of Allah be upon him. At the time of the victory of Makkah, history proves that Muslims were killed, plundered, and tortured in Mecca. And ultimately, they were driven out of their homes and had to migrate. Yet, when he returned victoriously to Mecca, and the entire city was under his command, his first pronouncement was that no revenge would be taken from those who had brutally persecuted the Muslims. He declared that in accordance with Islam's teachings, all those who had tormented the Muslims were to be instantly forgiven, and that nobody would be treated unjustly, regardless of whether they accepted Islam or not. Another moral revolution in favor of the weakest members of society brought by Islam regarded slavery, which prior to Islam was rampant and considered a normal part of society. In chapter 24, verse 34, the Holy Quran states that if a slave seeks freedom, he should be released, and if certain fiscal dues are levied, they must be reasonable and payable in small, easily manageable installments, or be waived altogether. In today's world, physical slavery no longer exists, but it has been replaced by economic bondage and servitude, wherein the relationship between the most powerful nations on earth and weaker countries has become akin to the relationship of a master and a slave. For example, loans disguised as aid packages are given by rich countries to weaker nations who have no option but to accept whatever strings are attached. Invariably, the crippling levels of interest mean that the short-term loans lead to long-term misery and liability. The end result is that the defaulting country has no choice but to bend to the will of the dominant nation. Such slavery is utterly immoral. From the outset, Islam also established the rights of non-Muslims and conscript Muslims to show restraint for the sake of the peace and unity of society. For example, chapter 6, verse 109, the Holy Quran declares that Muslims should not even speak against the idols of non-religious people because it could provoke them to speak against Allah the Almighty. In the short time available, I have mentioned only a few points that illustrate the right of humanity that have been established by Islam. I hope what I have said will have reassured you that Islam is not a threat to Western civilization or its culture. If there are any Muslims who usurp the rights of non-Muslims, it is only because they reject Islam's teachings or are wholly ignorant of them. In conclusion, it is clear we are living in a world that is on tenterhook, and I fear the precarious situation we are facing could escalate at any time. People must realize that words can have far-reaching consequences, and so, rather than speaking of a clash of civilization or needlessly ratcheting up tensions between different communities, people should refrain from attacking the religious teachings of one another. Instead of seeking to place restrictions upon the expressions of faith, we should recognize that we are all part of one human race, more connected than ever before. We should embrace our diversity and focus on establishing unity so that long-term peace can develop in the world. However, currently we are seeing the opposite. Muslim and non-Muslim countries alike are putting their own interests ahead of the interests of the wider world and are crossing all limits of fairness and morality in pursuit of their goals. Reminiscent of the dark days of the past, opposing blocs and alliances are forming, and it seems as though the world is hell-bent on inviting its destruction. Today, there are a host of countries who have acquired nuclear bombs or other destructive weapons that have the potential to destroy civilization as we know it. Who is to say that these weapons will never be used or will not end up in the wrong hands? If nuclear weapons are ever used, it will not just be us who bear the consequences. Rather, our children and future generations will have to suffer for our sins. Generations of children will be born with intellectual and physical disabilities and have their hopes and dreams shattered through no fault of their own. Is that the parting legacy we wish to bequeath to those who follow us? Surely not. Thus, instead of fanning flames of hatred, whether based on religious or ethnic differences or for political objectives, we must recognize the warning signs and change our ways before it is too late. Let us all, irrespective of our differences, join together and work with a spirit of mutual respect, tolerance, and affection for the peace of the world and to promote freedom of belief. With these words, I would like to thank you once again for joining us this evening. Thank you very much.
Meine Damen und Herren, zum Abschluss dieser Veranstaltung wird seine Heiligkeit jetzt traditionsgemäß ein stilles Gebet leiten. Sie können daran gerne auf die von Ihnen gewünschte Art teilnehmen. Anschließend sind Sie alle zum Abendessen herzlich eingeladen.
Dua. Amen.
Allahumma salli